So, hello everyone, and thank you for joining us today. For those of you who don't know me, and I'm sure that most of you don't know me, uh, I am Amna Hassanovic, and I'm a pre-sales engineer at Exclusive Networks for CrowdStrike in Bosnia and Herzegovina. So, those of you that were expecting my colleague Rafal today, surprise, surprise, it's me presenting. So unfortunately, he couldn't and wasn't able to present. So I will be filling out for him and talking with you guys. So today we are going to explore how CrowdStrike delivers modern endpoint protection that is fast and effective. So let's get started. Before we dive into today's topic regarding the next generation antivirus and traditional antivirus, I would like to briefly introduce CrowdStrike. So CrowdStrike was founded in 2011, and it is headquartered in Austin, Texas. Today, it is recognized as one of the world's leading cybersecurity companies, and it is publicly traded on NASDAQ under the ticker symbol CRWD. So what makes CrowdStrike different is its strong incident response heritage. So the company was founded by security experts who spent years investigating real-world cyber attacks, and instead of building security based on known malware only, they built a platform that is designed around how attackers actually operate and how attackers actually think. So today, CrowdStrike presents millions and millions of endpoints worldwide, and it is trusted by organizations of many sizes, from small ones to enterprise. So let's dive in. As you can see, that one of the strongest indicators of a security platform's quality is seeing who trusts that security platform. So CrowdStrike protects organizations across every major industry. As you can see, 7 of the top 10 financial services firms, 9 of the top 10 automotive companies, 8 of the top 10 technology companies. So it is really visible how CrowdStrike is really present in major companies and how organizations rely on CrowdStrike to protect their environments. So these numbers demonstrate that CrowdStrike is trusted by organizations with some of the most demanding security requirements and one of the largest attack surfaces. So beyond that, CrowdStrike is ranked #1 in modern endpoint security, which reinforces its position as a leader in endpoint protection. So with keeping all of that in mind, let's look at why the traditional antivirus is no longer enough and how modern endpoint protection has evolved. So before we discuss why traditional antivirus is no longer enough, we first need to understand the threat landscape that we are facing today. So currently, CrowdStrike tracks 257 active threat actors, and in 2024 alone, 26 new groups were identified. In addition, they monitor more than 140 activity clusters, and activity clusters are some suspicious campaigns that often evolved into new advanced persistent threat groups or new cybercriminal organizations. So what is the problem? The problem is that, and the challenge actually, that there aren't just more attackers, is that the problem is that they're emerging from more countries than ever before. And that shows us that sophisticated cyber attacks are no longer limited to a few major regions in the world, like years ago we were used to. So the real question becomes, how can a traditional antivirus detect a threat that it has never seen before? And this is why cybersecurity has evolved beyond signature-based detection to AI and machine learning powered and behavior-based protection, which is the foundation of CrowdStrike next generation antivirus. So this is Punk Spider, and it is one of the many e-crime adversaries tracked by CrowdStrike. These attackers move laterally across environments, they escalate privileges, and they abuse legitimate tools. And ultimately, they deploy ransomware for financial gain or personal gain, but 99% financial gain. So let's walk through a typical ransomware attack lifecycle. So the first one is credential access using password spraying, for example. So the first objective is to obtain valid user credentials. And one of the most common techniques is password spraying. So unlike a brute force attack where many passwords are tried against a single account, password spraying works the other way around. So attackers try one or a few commonly used passwords against a large number of user accounts. So examples can be hello 123, welcome 123, your name and surname and your date of birth, and etc. And this technique often goes unnoticed because it doesn't generate a high number of failed login attempts for any single account. So the next step then becomes the initial access. So once credentials are obtained, or actually once the credentials are stolen, the attacker attempts to gain initial access. And common methods include phishing emails, MFA fatigue attacks, voice phishing, vishing, and the goal is to trick the user into approving an authentication request or a VPN login. And at this stage, the attacker doesn't look like a malware. They look like one legitimate user. Then we move on to lateral movement. After gaining the access, the attacker uses valid credentials to move throughout the environment. Typical activities, accessing additional servers, connecting to file shares, reaching some administrative systems. Because valid credentials are being used, many traditional security tools do not even generate any kind of alert. The attacker then starts to learn as much possible about the environment, such as identifying service accounts in the Active Directory and attempting to crack their passwords, which is actually Kerberos roasting. So in other words, the attacker is trying to map and succeeding in mapping the entire infrastructures. Then comes reconnaissance. So attackers don't collect information only from inside of the network. They also heavily rely on publicly available sources such as LinkedIn. So they are looking for system administrators, IT personnel, executives, and users with privileged access. So this helps them identify the most valuable targets within the organization. Once the sensitive data has been identified, then the attacker begins to access confidential documents, download sensitive data, exfiltrate information outside of the organization. And since all of this and all of these actions are performed using a compromised legitimate account, they appear to be normal user activity. So how would you detect an attack like this today? Most organizations have good visibility into malware, viruses, suspicious files, but do they have visibility into password spraying attempts, unusual MFA requests, privileged logins from some unfamiliar countries? So if an attacker is using legitimate credentials, a traditional antivirus solution may not detect anything suspicious at all. So that is why CrowdStrike combines endpoint telemetry, identity protection, and behavioral analytics in order to detect attack patterns, even when there is no malware, even when there are no malicious files and no known indicators of compromise. So, so far we've talked about what our the main problem is. Now let's take a look how CrowdStrike addresses it. So CrowdStrike is much more than an antivirus. It's a unified and AI native security platform, which has been built around one single lightweight agent. So instead of deploying multiple disconnected security products, organizations can use only one platform to protect endpoints, to protect identities, to protect cloud workloads, and much more. So all of these abilities share the same layer, the same intelligence, and it provides us visibility across the entire environment, which then leads to faster detection, faster investigation, and faster response. So, yes, this slide illustrates how today's cyber threats are evolving much faster than before, and why organizations need to rethink about their security approach to security. So the first statistic highlights the dramatic rise in voice phishing or vishing, which is a form of social engineering where we use phone calls instead of emails and impersonate someone else. So as we can see that today's attackers often don't try to hack only technology, they try to manipulate people. So the next thing that we can see is that access broker activity has increased by 50%. And access broker activity, so access brokers are a relatively new type of cyber criminal, and their goal isn't to only to deploy ransomware by themselves. So instead of that, they focus on compromising the organization, gaining initial access to the organization, and then selling that access to others. Their customers that are often ransomware groups, organized cybercriminal organizations, or sometimes even state-sponsored threat actors. So in other words, there is now an entire marketplace dedicated to buying and selling compromised access, which leads to more motivation of compromising accounts. So another statistic is that 52% of exploited vulnerabilities are actually linked to the initial access stage that we've talked about before. So the highlights, so the highlight of everything that I've talked about is that once they gain the initial access, the rest of the attack becomes much more easier. And this shows the importance of stopping an attack as early as possible. So now let's look at breakout time. So the breakout time is the period between the initial compromise of a system and the attacker's first lateral movement to another system inside the environment. So in other words, it is how quickly can an attacker move beyond the first compromised device to some other one. So the average breakout time is now 48 minutes, while the fastest recorded breakout time is just 51 seconds. So that means that organizations often have less than an hour, sometimes less than a minute, to detect the attack, to investigate it, and respond before the attacker moves deeper into the environment. So if your response takes hours or even days, the attacker has already likely achieved their final objective. So let's continue. Why are many organizations still being compromised? So what happens when the malware has never been seen before? What if the attacker is using legitimate administrative tools? Or what if the attack is completely fileless and there is no malicious file to scan at all? So in all of these situations, traditional antivirus can easily miss the attack. So one of the biggest reasons that is that many organizations are still relying on security approaches that were designed 10 or even 20 years ago. So the first challenge is the signature-based protection. Traditional antivirus compares files against a database of known malware. But what happens when the malware has never been seen before, when attackers use legitimate tools, or when the attack is completely fileless? So in those cases, traditional antivirus easily misses the attack. The second challenge is limited visibility. So security teams collect data from firewalls, from endpoints, and from identity systems. But these tools often operate let's say, in silos. So without correlating these events, analysts only see pieces of the attack instead of the full picture, and that's exactly what attackers exploit. And the third challenge is the complexity. So because years and years, every organization, whenever they have a new threat, the answer was to buy another security tool. But the result is multiple agents, multiple consoles, higher resource usage, and actually more time spent managing those tools instead of improving the security. And now we will go through some of the myths that many people think that are true regarding traditional, when comparing traditional and next generation antivirus. So the first one, our legacy antivirus is good enough for today's threats. So traditional antivirus is designed to detect known threats. It relies on heavily relies on signatures. And that means that if malware has never been seen before, it may go completely undetected. So that is the reason why zero-day exploits and fileless attacks are so effective, because they simply bypass the signature-based detection. Legacy antivirus also struggles when attackers abuse legitimate sorry, administrative tools. So instead of deploying obvious malware, attackers use built-in tools such as PowerShell, remote administration, and other trusted applications in order to carry out malicious activities while appearing completely legitimate. So another blind spot is also identity-based attacks, compromised credentials. They have become one of today's most common attack vectors. Yet traditional antivirus does absolutely nothing to prevent an attacker from logging in with a stolen but valid user account. And finally, legacy antivirus is not designed to stop modern ransomware operations. Today's ransomware attacks involve credential theft, privilege escalation, lateral movement, and careful preparation before encryption even begins. And by the time it starts, the attacker has often been inside the environment for days or even weeks. So let's move on to the next myth. Migrating to modern security is too expensive for us. So legacy security tools actually often require dedicated infrastructure, frequent software updates, and some continuous support from and efforts from admins. They also generate a very large number of false positives, and as a result, the security teams spend valuable time, and time is money. So they spend valuable time investigating alerts that aren't real threats instead of focusing on incidents that actually matter. So in 2024, the average cost of a data breach reached 4.8 million, and ransomware incidents can be even more expensive when you include the downtime, the recovery costs, and of course, the reputational damage. The third myth, deploying modern security will disrupt our operations. So cloud-native security platforms like CrowdStrike are designed to deploy with minimal disruptions, like very minimal. And the lightweight agents run very, very efficiently without slowing down devices at all or interrupting normal business operations. CrowdStrike's agent doesn't require a reboot or a restart of the system, and the organizations also don't need to replace anything overnight. So modern security platforms can coexist with a legacy antivirus solution during the migration, which allows organizations to transition gradually at their own pace. So the fourth one is that false positives are just a part of cybersecurity. I mean, okay, false positives in one way are a part of cybersecurity, but the alert fatigue can really slow down security teams, like because traditional detection models lack context. They rely on static rules, they rely on signatures, and generate alerts whenever something appears suspicious, without understanding whether the activity actually represents a same threat. So at the same time, disconnected security tools create even more noise. Endpoint protection, identity systems, and threat intelligence platforms often generate separate alerts for the same attack because they aren't sharing the information between each other. And this forces analysts to manually connect the dots. And the result is alert fatigue. So when they spend hours reviewing thousands of false positives, they have less time to investigate the genuine and the real incidents, which increases response time and gives the attacker a greater opportunity to succeed. The fifth myth is that compliance alone doesn't equal security. We're already compliant. Okay, but compliance requirements, they typically evolve over years and attackers evolve in weeks. And a legacy antivirus solution may satisfy some audit checklist, but it can still leave significant security gaps that modern attackers really know how to exploit. So now we will go through the endpoint security modules of CrowdStrike. So the first one is Falcon device control. So Falcon device control addresses one of the most common endpoint security risks, which is the use of unauthorized external devices. Typical scenario include an employee connects a personal USB drive to a corporate laptop, and an attacker uses a USB device to introduce malware. A user copies sensitive data, sensitive company data to some external drive. And all of these activities lead to data theft, data loss, malware infections, and of course, compliance violations. So Falcon device control helps because the solution provides centralized control over a wide range of removable devices, including USB flash drives, external hard drives, SD cards, etc. And because it is fully integrated into the Falcon platform, there is no additional infrastructure to deploy. Falcon for Mobile extends CrowdStrike's AI native protection to mobile devices, which helps organizations secure both iOS and Android endpoints. And it protects them from today's evolving threats. So the solution combines the AI-driven threat intelligence with real-time behavioral analysis in order to detect and to prevent sophisticated attacks. Falcon Prevent, the star of today's show, is CrowdStrike's next generation antivirus solution. And it is designed to stop both known and unknown threats using artificial intelligence, behavioral detection, memory scanning, and exploit protection. So unlike traditional antivirus solutions that rely primarily on malware signatures, Falcon Prevent uses a layered prevention approach in order to identify and to block modern attacks. That includes fileless threats that never write malicious files to a disk. So its prevention capabilities include the pre-execution machine learning, which analyzes files before they are allowed to run, behavioral IOAs, which detect suspicious behaviors and attack techniques during execution, and memory scanning, which identifies malware that is executing directly in memory. So one of Falcon Prevent's biggest differentiators is the use of IOAs. So let's look at it this way. If a traditional antivirus asks, have I seen this file before? But Falcon Prevent asks, is this process behaving like an attack? So imagine the sequence that Microsoft Word launches PowerShell downloads payload from the internet, a scheduled task is created. So regardless of the file name or hash value, this sequence represents malicious behavior, and Falcon Prevent recognizes the attack pattern and can stop it before the attacker even achieves their objective. So Falcon inside XDR. So CrowdStrike is really top of the notch of endpoint detection and response market. And for more than a decade, they have been building a platform that became one of the industry's leading EDR solutions. And Falcon Insight provides continuous visibility across the environment by implementing continuous endpoint telemetry, real-time threat detection, proactive threat hunting, and incident investigation. So when an incident occurs, analysts can quickly understand the full attack story. They can see how the attack started, which process initiated the compromise, how the attacker moved across the environment, which users are and systems were affected. And that level of visibility enables security teams to really investigate incidents faster and to respond more effectively. So CrowdStrike goes a step further because it unifies the EDR and XDR approach. So instead of deploying separate products for endpoint detection and separate product for extended endpoints detection and response, CrowdStrike combines them into one single platform. And of course, same goes again, it is all on one single agent. So let's say you first install the CrowdStrike antivirus, you want to scale up to the Falcon inside XDR, you do not need to install anything again. It can be done really smoothly. Then firewall management simplifies firewall administration by providing centralized policy management through a very single and easy to use console. So instead of configuring firewall rules individually on each endpoint, administrators can now create, deploy, and enforce policies centrally across the entire environment. And Falcon Forensics is CrowdStrike's advanced solution for collecting and for analyzing forensic evidence during security investigations. So the key capabilities is the AI native prevention and detection. So CrowdStrike uses a very multi-layered AI approach that combines machine learning on the endpoint and with the power of the cloud. So the first layer runs directly on the endpoint. The lightweight machine learning models, they analyze files before they even execute, which can stop known and unknown threats. The second layer focuses on the behavior and not signatures using CrowdStrike's AI-powered IOAs. And finally, the cloud-native AI provides very deep analysis by combining telemetry from millions and millions protected endpoints worldwide. Sorry if I'm going quick. I see that we are running out of time, and I want to say everything that I planned to say, because for me it's all equally important. So the unified platform is one of the biggest strengths of CrowdStrike. Instead of switching between multiple tools, security teams, security teams can really monitor and investigate and respond to threats from one centralized interface. So instead of switching from let's say 5 different tools, your security team can see everything that is happening in the environment from only one console. And the platform, it really brings together the endpoint visibility with some additional capabilities such as identity threat detection and response, which gives analysts a complete view of what's happening inside of the environment. So Charlotte AI is CrowdStrike's AI-powered security assistant that helps the SOC team reduce manual work and to respond to threats more efficiently. So instead of spending valuable time reviewing alerts and gathering information tools, analysts receive immediate insights and recommendations directly within the Falcon platform. So Charlotte AI does detection triage, which is alert prioritization. So security teams are often overwhelmed with alerts every day, but only a small percentage of them require immediate attention. So Charlotte AI automatically evaluates all the events across endpoints, identities, and cloud environments in order to determine which ones present a real risk and which ones do not. So this also cuts time. The second one is the incident investigation. So when some suspicious activity is detected, Charlotte AI gathers the relevant information into one single view. And finally, the third capability is the intelligent automation. So Charlotte AI works with Falcon's SOAR capabilities to automate response actions. So it can launch playbooks, perform routine security tasks, and adjust workflows based on the type of the incident and the organization's processes. So here you can see how it looks, how the agentic response from Charlotte AI actually looks, because Charlotte AI is thought to act like a SOC analyst. So it analyzes everything that is happening, any incident that is happening, it analyzes it just like a SOC analyst would do it. And you don't have to do it all alone, because CrowdStrike Overwatch provides 24/7 threat hunting, which can continuously search for attacks that some automated tools may miss. And now I will just quickly show you 2 case studies, real-world examples of moving from legacy antivirus to a modern security platform. So the first one is Pegasystems. It's a software company, and like many organizations, it found that its traditional antivirus was beginning to impact system performance. Particularly for developers and some build environments. But rather than simply replacing their antivirus, they really chose to modernize their entire security strategy with the CrowdStrike Falcon platform. So they consolidated endpoint protection, identity security, and cloud security inside one whole platform. By doing all of that, they really simplified the security operations while gaining a much bigger visibility across their environment. So the result was a fast deployment, improved performance, and the ability to detect threats across the entire attack lifecycle, and not only on the endpoint. And so the second one is from a company called Anywhere Real Estate. So they had a typical enterprise security stack, which consisted of multiple legacy tools, antivirus, CDR, and other security components. So the problem wasn't loss of data. It was actually too much data with too little context. So their security operations center generated around 30,000 alerts daily. And it's a classic alert fatigue example, which I talked about before. So the teams were flooded with information, and they couldn't clearly differentiate what is important and what is not. So the main problem of legacy approaches is exactly that: too many tools, too many alerts, and too little context. So because of that, they decided to move to CrowdStrike Falcon platform. And after the implementation, they got really a much different picture. So instead of thousands of irrelevance alerts, they now have around 500 less alerts, and almost 98%, so almost all of it, are true positive rates. They also implemented the Falcon Overwatch, with which they got 24/7 threat hunting, which means that some experts are actively looking for threats instead of waiting for the alarm to activate. And now a few slides which really shows that CrowdStrike is top of the notch of modern endpoint security. So we can see that it was announced a leader and an outperformer in the prevention of ransomware. And we also have the SC Labs advanced security tests, which we can see that CrowdStrike fulfilled 100% detection accuracy, 100% legitimate accuracy, and 100% total accuracy with 0 false positives. So thank you everyone for your attention and for your time today. I'm sorry about the 5 minutes overtime that I did, but let's say it compensates for the 5 minutes that we waited in the beginning. So if you have any questions, now is the time to ask them. If you don't have any questions now, but you maybe think of some questions later, you can always contact me. You have my email, and you can write to me, contact me, call me for whatever questions you have. And also my colleague Rafal, who unfortunately couldn't make it today, but he is also here for all of you.